Okay, folks, welcome back to Landmine Live here on a very chilly Tuesday evening here in Anchorage, Alaska. I want to talk about a few things today. I want to talk about Senator Matt Claman's entrance into the governor's race, which was a bit of a surprise. There was talk for a while about him running as lieutenant governor with Click Bishop. That was kind of the Click Claman that was out there for his race, which kind of came out of nowhere yesterday. I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the recent APD, Anchorage Police Department investigative story I published on Friday about a woman APD hired to be a mental health clinician who was very questionable hire. I'm going to talk about why and then what happened after she was hired. Not even 8 months after she was hired, involving her gun, personal gun, that ended up in the hands of a former patient who she was suspected of having an inappropriate relationship with and was investigated, and somehow APD hires her. It's a very bizarre, wild story that's kind of hard to follow, and I want to talk about the story I wrote, how I got the documents, kind of the internal documents leaked to me, and what this means for APD and their hiring practices to hire these people to deal with mentally disturbed or mentally ill people. Before I start the podcast, I want to thank our sponsors. First, John Quick. Really appreciate John Quick being a sponsor down there in the Kenai. He supports independent journalism, and he's been a great sponsor of the podcast and the live stream for a long time. So I really want to thank John Quick just for supporting me and supporting the Landmine Live. So thank you, John Quick. And then Ryan Sheldon, newer sponsor with Talkeetna Landing. He's got some cabins down there, and if you're skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, just want to go hang out in Talkeetna for a little bit and kind of see what's happening in the winter, go to talkeetnalanding.com. Great views of Denali, McKinley, whatever you want to call it. They have a special discount for guests and Alaskans doing flight seeing tours, or just Alaskans that are wanting to go to the cabin and have a little getaway. So it's $99 a night. Great deal. And I kind of joke that if you mention me, he might charge you more. So if you mention Jeff Landfield at Landmine, when you go to talkeetnalanding.com, Ryan Sheldon, he might charge you a little Jeff tax, if you will. So kind of a little joking there, but check it out. Looks like I'm actually meaning to get up there at some point. I want to go check it out and spend the night so I can talk about staying there, but pictures look great and it looks like a really cool place. So I want to thank Ryan Sheldon, talkeetnalanding.com for being a sponsor. Go check out the website. So first thing I want to talk about is Matt Claman, who, interesting guy. He's been in the Senate for a while. He was in the House before. He's a lawyer. He was years ago in the Anchorage Assembly. He actually became mayor for a while when Mark Begich in 2008 beat Ted Stevens to be senator. So there was a period of time where he was the chair of the assembly, and then he became interim or kind of acting mayor in the meantime. So he's been in the assembly, was acting mayor, went to legislature, went to House, now he's in the Senate. Interesting guy. He's Democrat, but he's I'd say he's one of the more moderate or one of the kind of more normal Democrats. He's an old school guy. He's not, up there on any of this woke nonsense or any of this crazy stuff. Like I said before, he was rumored for a long time to be, running with, maybe running with Click Bishop, Click Claman. That was the Click Claman. Kind of sounds nice, but it never really was, hashed out, and it was always kind of rumor mill. But it's clear that he did have some kind of statewide ambition, and he's unlike Mike Shower, who's running with Bernadette Wilson, and Shelley Hughes, who's running for governor. They're both up for re-election in 2026, so they have to kind of pick. Matt Claman's not up for re-election until 2028. And I talked to Matt Claman, and I said, are you going to resign? Because, it's not easy to run for governor if you're in the legislature in Juneau. And he said, no, he's not resigning. So he's not going to resign and isn't forced to pick because he's not up for re-election next year. So either way, Claman staying in the legislature, he's not resigning, running for governor. He's the second Democrat to get in the race after Tom Begich, who was a former senator as well for 6 years. He was minority leader. And Matt Claman's entrance into the race is kind of interesting because Tom Begich got in and said in a very weird way, or very weird position, that if Mary Peltola gets in the race, he will get out of the race, which is kind of an odd thing. I've talked about this before. If you're going to run for governor, run for governor. If you're going to raise money and ask for endorsements and ask for support, the supporters might say, or the donors might say, well, you said you're going to get out if Mary gets in. So what's Mary doing? Mary's still unknown. I think it was Suzanne Downing did an article earlier, and she called her Maybe Mary, which is a great name, Maybe Mary, because maybe she runs for governor, maybe she runs for U.S. Senate against Dan Sullivan. but it's unclear. And several Democrats I've spoken to, elected Democrats, higher level Democrats, are starting to get really frustrated with her because she creates all this uncertainty by maybe she's going to run for governor, maybe not, maybe she's going to run for U.S. Senate, maybe not against Dan Sullivan. And so now I think Claman, I don't know if I've asked him this or we didn't talk about this, but I did say, what if Mary gets in? And he says, well, I'm in the race. And that was kind of what he said. But I think he probably is one of these Democrats who says, well, fuck it. If you're not going to run and you're going to wait till who knows when, filing deadline's not until June 1st, I'm going to get in the race. So what I wonder if Matt Claman's entrance into the race does potentially is if now more Democrats who were saying, well, Tom is in the race and he's going to get out if Mary gets in, Mary Peltola gets in, I'm going to kind of wait. This could maybe open the floodgates for more Democrats to get in the race because we already have 12 Republicans. So the Republicans, it's just kind of a wild situation where you have former Dunleavy, administration, Craig Taylor, Crooked Adam Crum. You have Mayor Edna DeVries from the North Slope or the Matsu Borough, Bernadette Wilson, these kind of random people, people haven't heard of, and Angoon, and the Valley. You have former Mayor Anchorage Mayor Dave Bronson, Click Bishop, former state senator. So you have all these kind of people from all over the gamut of the Republican politics, 12 of them, and now 2 Democrats. So, I've said for a while, by the time this thing is done, June 1st, when the filing deadline's closed, I think there's going to be 25 or 30 candidates. Now, many of them are going to be not serious candidates. They aren't going to have money. They're just going to be these kind of usual suspects of people who run for office and don't raise any money. But if you have 25 or 30 people, and it could be more. I mean, when Don Young passed away, the first round, when Mary ended up winning, there was like 48 or 49 people. So it could be 25, 30 more, 35. So you're talking about if there's 5 or 6, 7 Democrats, 12 Republicans, and some people are going to thin out, I think, in the spring when they realize they have no money or they aren't getting support. But if you have 5 or 10 Republicans and 5 or 6 or 7 Democrats and all these other random people, 10% probably gets you to the top 4, maybe a little more. Maybe one Democrat gets above the herd and maybe one Republican is, but then you have all these other vote splits going on. So it'll be really interesting who gets in, who files by June 1st. There's a dropout deadline after the filing deadline. So I think it's like 2 weeks after the filing deadline, people can drop out. So that's when kind of the deals are going to get made because by that point, nobody else can get in, but people can get out. So you'll see that situation. And then also after the general or after the primary, when you go to the general, you have the top 4 and then people can also decide to get out, which actually brings people up. So if somebody's in, first, second, well, first wouldn't do it, but let's say if 4th place gets out, the 5th place person moves up. If that person then gets out or somebody else gets out 3rd place, the 6th person place moves up. So the real deal making as far as the field goes would be after the June 1st filing deadline up until the dropout deadline, withdrawal deadline, which is like 2 weeks after June 1st. And there's going to be all kinds of, even before that, there's going to be kind of jockeying and figuring out, hey, I'm not going to win, or I don't have enough support, I don't have enough money, but I have supporters. Nancy Dahlstrom's in the race too, lieutenant governor, I forgot her. So if people feel like there's a way to negotiate, hey, I'll get out of the race and endorse you if you make me your running mate, or if you make me a commissioner, or if you make me, part of some high level co-chair, but then you promise me a job or something. This is all going to happen. I've had people tell me, oh, that's illegal. You can't do that. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, that's politics. You're basically making deals. You're forming political alliances. I don't see anything. I mean, I guess it might be, what would be the problem would be if say I go to you and say I'll give you money to get out. I mean, that'd be wrong. That'd be not okay. But to say look, if you support me and you endorse me and I win, I get to put a team together of a cabinet and all these other heads of agencies. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I've had some people say, oh, they're nervous. Maybe somebody's talking to somebody else and they could make a deal and get support. And that's not. I don't see any problem with that at all. That's no issue. So the big news, this week, Senator Matt Claman, Democrat from West Anchorage, is running for governor. He's not up for re-election next year, so he doesn't have to pick. He told me he's not withdrawing. And as far as Mary goes, he goes, I'm in the race. He's not saying what Tom Begich is saying, that if she gets in, he gets out. So I wonder if that changes Tom Begich's calculus potentially. If Mary gets in, is he still going to get out? Or now that Matt Claman's in the race, I think Tom thought, all the Democrats are just going to kind of wait and see what happens. And if she doesn't get in, then he's the guy. Well, that's not the case anymore. And these guys are kind of similar. They're Anchorage Democrats. They were in the legislature. They're probably, I'm guessing, similar age, so it's not like vastly different. It's not like some young woman or something that's very different than Tom Begich. So that could be interesting if Mary does get in or doesn't get in, and these two guys are in, and then who else might decide to get in the race. I've looked at like other states, like New Mexico, where I'm from originally. I grew up. I moved here in 2004. They're having an open. Their Lujan Grisham governor, Lujan Grisham, is also up or termed out like Dunleavy next year, and they only have like 3 or 4 people. They have Deb Haaland, who's former Interior Secretary, who's not a friend for many people in Alaska for when she was Biden's Interior Secretary. There's a mayor of a city I used to grew up in called Rio Rancho outside of Albuquerque. There's a kind of former district attorney guy, and there's like a few more, but it's much like it's Mexico is much more populated. I think it's like double the population of Alaska, and they only have 3 or 4 kind of candidates. Whereas there's like 2 Democrats, Holland, this district attorney guy, forget his name. I think his son plays in the Major League Baseball. And then there's one Republican guy so far. There's a few other kind of, but here it's like we have way more people and way less population. It's very strange what's happening here with our governor's race. So that's that. We'll be following that and seeing what happens. And, it's mid-November almost. And there's 6 weeks, a few weeks till Thanksgiving. And then there's December and then end of the year. And then we get into the session. So I feel like when session starts, there's going to be a lot more watching and kind of deciding on people running for legislature and who's going to run against who, and they're going to start kind of lining things up. So there's still the process to pick. One more thing I'll say about Mike Shower. He resigned last week. There's a process to send names to the governor. They're going to meet in Big Lake on Friday. The Republicans on Friday evening send some names to the governor. He doesn't have to pick from those names, but it's probably going to be George Rauscher, maybe Kevin McCabe, maybe somebody else, who knows. But almost certainly he's going to pick George Rauscher. And then if that happens and he's confirmed by the Senate Republicans, which I think will happen, there's some chance it couldn't, but that'd be a big blow up, and that would be really weird if they rejected George Rauscher. I can't see that happening. I think there's 10 of them. They need 6 to vote yes. I'd be kind of shocked if 5 of them voted against George Rauscher if he's picked by Dunleavy to replace Mike Shower. But if he is picked and confirmed, then there's a process to fill his seat. And then we still have the Shelley Hughes situation. She said she's going to resign. She hasn't yet resigned. She hasn't said when she's going to resign. I asked her about it. She says she hasn't decided yet. But she better hurry up because, if you do it too late, you get into December, even if it's a quick process to pick, let's say if it's Kathy Tilton, who I think it'll be, well, the Republicans in the Senate still have to meet to confirm her, and then you have to fill her seat, and then you're starting to get into session starting in, January. And the people who, if it's George Rauscher and Kathy Tilton, the people who replace them are not going to be legislators. Unlike Kathy Tilton and George Rauscher, they're already in the legislature. It's already kind of, knowing they're going to Juneau, it's not that big of a deal. People taking up over vacant House seats have to, if they have a job or a business or a family, they have to figure that out to go to Juneau. So that could be interesting if Shelley Hughes waits too long to resign. That could bleed over into maybe having a vacant House seat if Kathy Tilton goes in there and when session starts. And Republicans have 19 in the minority. If they're missing somebody, that could create a bit of a problem with seating assignments and how many seats they get on the Finance Committee. So I'm sure they're all talking about this, and they have to get this worked out. Next thing I want to talk about is this APD story I did on Friday. If you haven't read it, it's been kind of a hot story. It's been viewed, many. I think I have to look at the view count. It was way over 25 or 30,000. It's like 1,200 or 1,300 shares. I haven't checked it in a couple days on the view, but it's a ton of views, and it's been kind of a little bit of a locally viral story. Been leaked. I've been given leaked, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of internal APD documents regarding internal affairs and other things. Police reports, investigations, criminal investigations. And if you've ever tried to get information from APD, this stuff they wouldn't even give out, but even stuff they give out. For example, I just did a records request for some documents regarding some 911 calls from Walmart in Midtown, which, by the way, that's going to be a wild story. The amount of people who have called, amount of times Walmart on A Street is called APD. It's crazy amount. It's just insane for theft and fighting and assault and all this stuff. But that took me almost 2 months to get. They're notoriously bad for getting documents, responding to records requests. So I've obtained a bunch of internal documents. I did a story a few weeks ago on some internal affairs stuff with Case, trying to do DEI hiring back 4 years ago, and pushback he got from his command staff when he was a captain. Anyways, so I'm not going to go into this story and talk about it and try to explain it. I know some people, some of the feedback I've gotten is, it's kind of hard to track some of it. If you read it, they've said if I read the story really thoughtfully and carefully, I can understand it, but it's kind of all over the place and there's several things happening, which is, I understand. And it was a hard story to write. There was a lot of documents. I mean, one of the police reports I got regarding the story was 40 pages long, and it was 9 interviews with different people. So I'm just going to do a chronology of what happened, laid out, and then there's some other information that I've since learned about it, which is fascinating. And I think there's going to be some follow-up stories, and I really hope the assembly or the mayor, but she's not. I mean, she appointed case police chief, so I don't think that's going to happen. But somebody asks how this woman got hired by APD. So the gist of it is, in June of 2023, APD hired a woman named Chelsea Williams to be a mental health clinician on something called the Mobile Intervention Team. Now, this team was created, spearheaded, kind of brainchild of Sean Case when he was a captain. So before he was police chief, he was a deputy chief and a captain. At this point, he was I think he was a captain when he started the Mobile Intervention Team, but at some point he was overseeing it. He founded it. He was a deputy police chief. So in June of 2023, a woman gets hired to work at APD. Now, previously she worked at a place called ARCH, Adolescent Recovery Health Center. It's a part of Volunteers of America, and it's basically a place for adolescents 12 to 18 to get, if they have mental, drug addiction issues, substance abuse, they go there and get help. So she was working at ARCH for 3 years. She eventually became program director. Now, the prior January, so she's hired by APD in June of 2023. In January 2023, she was under criminal investigation by APD for allegedly having kind of an inappropriate sexual relationship with a minor. So criminal sexual assault of a minor. That was happening in January. Now, that was unfounded. The kids wouldn't talk, and it didn't go anywhere. But somebody reported it. Somebody who worked there, they're mandatory reporters, reported there was some inappropriate relationship with one of the boys, and there was another boy who was kind of involved who reported it. So there was 2 boys. One she was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with, criminal relationship, sexual abuse of a minor. So that was unfounded. They couldn't prove it. So after that, not long after that, she leaves ARCH. I think it was April. So April 2023, she leaves ARCH. A few months later, she's working at APD. She had just been investigated for criminal sexual abuse of a minor. That was unfounded, but might be something, you might want to put the, radar up for if she was under that kind of investigation. So she's at APD. In November of that year, so 5 months later, she's again under criminal investigation for sexual abuse of a minor, involving the same kid and one more that was in the first one that he had kind of reported it and said he saw something, some of the staff saw things. So she's again under criminal investigation because somebody else who was working in a mental health field with police reported an inappropriate relationship. So this is the second time. But she's still working at APD. So this is ongoing. And now the first one in January, the first investigation was pretty brief. All I have is a 1-page, well, we talked, they wouldn't talk. We couldn't we couldn't get anywhere. The boys in question wouldn't talk to us. So it was like, well, what do we, there's nothing there. We can't prove anything. All we have is accusations. The one in November of 2023, when she was working at APD as a mental health clinician with the Mobile Intervention Team, was much more complex and long. It's 40 pages. There's interviews with multiple people. The boys in question, other mental health clinicians, just all kinds of family members of the boys, all these people. That's November. So that's ongoing. So in February of 2024, so a few months after this investigation, second investigation is opened up, one of the boys in question has an incident where he has a gun, and it's in Eagle River, and he's at this Speedway gas station, and he's kind of making threats against himself and his dad. And eventually the police get called. Police show up. He's there. The dad was able to wrestle the gun away. Sounded kind of wild. He's 18 at the time. And he eventually is taken into custody, and he's determined to be not like a threat to, really more of a threat to himself. It's, I think, Title 47 or something, where he's a threat to himself, and he is taken to the regional hospital. So in the course of this, the cop's talking to the kid. He's on the phone with his dad. He's referring to this girlfriend of his. He doesn't really say much. He's being cagey. He's talking to a woman. He's talking to his parents, referring to his girlfriend. He gets really upset when he finds out they were the ones who called the cops. They gave the number of the girlfriend. Well, it turns out the person they're saying is his girlfriend is this Chelsea Williams, who in the contemporaneous police report, when the cop got there at the time, the dad of this kid says, oh, she was here, but she left, this Chelsea Williams. The craziest part about this whole thing is the gun was her gun. So in November and December, actually, when she was interviewed as part of the second investigation, she said she had no contact with this kid. She said, there's no relationship, no contact. But then a few months later, not even 2 months later, he has her gun. It also became known in the course of the internal, because after this happened with the gun, APD was like, holy shit. Like, she works for us. This guy who was threatening himself to kill himself and his dad had her gun. She was under investigation for having an inappropriate criminal relationship with him when he was a patient. Holy shit. It also became clear in this investigation with Internal Affairs, and I have the tape, and I've posted part of the tape on the Landmine. You can go, it's on Landmine YouTube. You can go listen to the whole interview. This kid was also working for her dad the previous summer. So she claims no relationship, nothing inappropriate, nothing going on, nothing to see here. He has her gun, and he's previously working for her dad doing roofing, which is just wild. And during the course of this 3 Internal Affairs interviews, she had said she deleted her phone call logs, deleted her voicemails, wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't turn things over, said she was tired of being under investigation. Why is she under investigation? At some point, the cop, Lieutenant Ken Bashu, who's the Internal Affairs guy, said, well, there was a person making threats with a gun. Turns out it's your gun. You work for APD. When this all went down and she found out about it, and she said, oh, it was her birthday and she was having dinner at a friend's house and she'd had Botox that day. She didn't say, because what the dad said was she was with the kid at the Speedway. She didn't say any of that. And also when she had at some point found out, it's never really clear how she found out about the gun, how he had the gun. But instead of calling APD, which you'd think you would do if somebody's making threats with a gun, she called the dad, who in the reports, it said he had a contentious relationship with his dad. So if she knew that, why would she call the dad? If he's making threats against himself and the dad, why would you call the dad? You call the police. And the Bashu guy in the interview is telling her, why would you not call the police? When the police get there, wouldn't it be good for them to know there's a gun? Your gun, he has a gun. And this kid's 18 at the time, so he's not a minor anymore, but he was a patient when she was a clinical, mental health person at Arch. Again, she became program director at Arch. Was under investigation, left, goes to APD, fast forward, under investigation again. Then, a few months after that, he has this gun incident. So she's under investigation, Internal Affairs investigation at APD. There's 3 interviews. The Bashu guy does the report, which I got a hold of, and he basically found that, she had lied, she was being dishonest, duty requirements was a failure to not tell the police about the gun. As far as the inappropriate, he said, it's clear they met at Arch. It's clear they had a relationship. They were covering up. We couldn't prove when it started. So as far as that goes, anything criminal, at that time he was 18, which is weird, which is like a 32-year-old with kids being in a relationship, having a physical, whatever, sexual relationship with a 18-year-old former patient is in itself kind of weird. But there's another kid who was a patient too, who she was also allegedly involved with. And I don't even want to go into that, but I mean, some of the interviews describe one being jealous, seeing them together, a car chase, all this stuff, all this wild shit. So after this Internal Affairs thing goes on, this interview on February 14th, the next day she resigns. She sent a resignation letter to Deputy Chief at the time, Deputy Chief Sean Case, who oversaw this mental health, mobile intervention team. He founded it. Resignation goes to him. She's done by February 15th. Now, Internal Affairs is not a criminal investigation, so Bashu guy in his report says, well, she resigned before the case could be finished, case closed. Here's what I've learned since. 3 weeks later, in March of 2024, she's working for this Glacier Mental Health clinic in Eagle River. So the public, the APD basically said, well, we're done with it. We wash our hands. She resigned. We don't have to worry about it. Clearly, somebody who's acting, a mental health professional who's acting, at the very best, I guess, inappropriate. At the very worst, much worse. But having a gun and she said she told APD, the internal affairs guy, that they were going to go shooting because that's when they found out he worked for her dad. They were going to go shooting, but then they got tired and didn't go shooting, and she left her gun in the car. I mean, I don't believe that for a second. I think he found the gun, he took the gun, she gave him the gun. Who fucking knows? But this idea of her leaving the gun in the car when they were going to go shooting and then they got tired and didn't go shooting is nonsense. So she's working for this Glacier Mental. 3 weeks later, she's did a post. There's this group called Psychotherapy in Alaska. It's like a Facebook group for like mental health people. There's a post in that group that was put out there and that was sent to me. And some people raised concerns about it. And they were basically told, don't do that. There's no issue here. And lawyers got involved, sending cease and desist letters to people that were trying to. Also, people told me that they had complained to the state licensure board. She's still a clinical social worker. She's still a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Alaska. So people have gone to the licensure board and expressed some concerns about the stuff I talked about earlier. And nothing happened. Nothing came of it. So, I mean, while she has issues, and there's definitely issues with her, the bigger issue for me, the biggest question here is, how did APD hire her and then keep her employed and then just quietly let her resign in the course of 8 months? And again, after she left Arch, she was hired at APD very quickly after. It was most 2 months. It might have been about a month, because I don't know, she left in April of some point, Arch, and she's working at APD in June. So, I mean, we're talking about, 4 to 6 weeks, max 2 months. I think she was starting in APD in early June. So she was hired very quickly at APD. It's just the whole thing is wild. And it's just so clear that she was caught lying. I mean, she just kept lying, caught lying, denied the relationship, denied denied seeing the kid. Turns out he was working for the father. He has the gun. The transcript of it's in the article on the landmine. The transcript of him in the back of the car talking to like his mom and his dad and some unknown female, where it's like so clear that he knows, like, oh my God, the cops are involved. My parents called the cops. I have her gun. He knows he knows she works for APD. Just absolutely wild. And she's still, she's still, so far as I know, it seems like she's still working as a mental health clinician professional, which is kind of crazy to me. But again, bigger story here, bigger question is like, how did APD hire her? And why'd they just let her quietly go away? I mean, it seems like APD and everybody else involved, actually, it seems like they're all just worried about liability. Nobody wants to be liable, so they just cover their own ass. That seems to be the kind of bigger outcome here. It's like nobody wants to have been found to employ a bad person who's doing bad things. So, oh no, we didn't do it. We did all the things right. We went through the process, whatever happened. And the evidence and all the interviews and stuff show that this was just a really, really, really bad situation, and a person who was doing bad things, who kept getting kind of just advanced through the system, licensed, working as a mental health person with young people, which, I mean, seems to me we have a behavior of predatory behavior and a groomer. I mean, it's hard to prove exactly what happened when she was at Arch, because it was never, but there was multiple investigations, and it just seems, this whole thing seems bad. So that's a story. I recommend reading it. It's on the Landmine website. It's kind of been a hot story. I've learned a whole bunch more. Oh, one more thing. APD, during the investigation, they ran a trace on the gun. So I have that as well. So she bought the gun in December 16th, 2023, from Bass Pro Shop. The second criminal investigation into her started at the end of November. So like 2 weeks after the investigation starts, she buys a gun. APD, for the second investigation, talked to her on December 19th. So it's like very odd timing when she bought this gun. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe there's investigations. There's kids involved. They seem they're obviously they're in substance abuse. Who knows? But it's like there's all these questions to be asked by somebody. I mean, not me. She's not going to talk to me. But the assembly, the mayor, the trooper. I mean, someone needs to get in here and see, like, how'd this happen? Is there anything else out there going on? Is there connections to people? What other thing could be happening here to determine to result in her getting this job with APD and working at APD, and then having the kid get the gun and not tell the APD about a gun? I mean, what could have happened with that gun? I mean, who knows? Somebody could have got hurt, shot, or killed. And again, I want to one more thing clarify. It wasn't a work gun. It wasn't an issued gun. She wasn't a cop. She was a mental health clinician as part of the mobile intervention team, works alongside cops. So it was a personal gun. It was her personal gun, firearm, handgun that the kid ended up with. So that's a story. I mentioned this in my Sunday column. I'm in possession of other internal affairs documents, records that I've gotten a hold of and leaked to me, and I'm going to be doing some more stories on the APD. I mean, it seems like the kind of takeaway from APD here, and you can go back and there's a whole history of APD letting people go, and then they get sued, and the people win, and they have to pay them money. It seems to me that APD's culture is if we have any problems internally, we deal with them as quietly as possible and make them go away, and not tell anybody about it, the public. That seems to be kind of the culture, internal culture at APD. Let's just brush things under the rug, do it internally, not tell anybody, not be transparent with the public. It's kind of wild. I mean, it's just really, these are supposed to be like the people protecting us, and a lot of questions with the APD. So that's the live stream today. Again, I want to thank Ryan Sheldon, Talkeetna Landing, $99 a night, great cabins. If you're skiing, tire biking, sled dogs, seeing Denali, whatever, want to go just get away and relax in Talkeetna, go ahead and get a hold of Ryan Sheldon at talkeetnalanding.com, $99 a night. Also, John Quick from the Kenai Peninsula. He supports independent journalism, and he's been a big supporter of Landmine Live and the podcast. I really want to thank John Quick. And folks, if you like Landmine Live, if you like the live stream, if you like the podcast, if you like the Landmine, please consider making a one-time or monthly recurring donation to alaskalandmine.com/subscribe, or go to the website. There's a subscribe button. You can do a one-time or monthly recurring. Or if you're a business or organization or a campaign, you want to do you want to advertise on the Landmine, or you want to sponsor the podcast or the live stream, we're always looking for that. So please get a hold of me. You can email me, jeff@alaskalandmine.com, send me a message, get a hold of me. I'm easy to get a hold of. And we do appreciate your support. This allows us to kind of do all the things we do here with the Landmine. And I will be going back to Juneau in January for my 8th session in a row to cover what's going to be a wild and crazy session during an election year, open governor's race, lots of legislative races. Some people aren't running. The people are going to the Senate. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on next year, folks, with Alaska politics. It's going to be a wild ride. So thanks for watching. Again, I want to thank my sponsors, Ryan Sheldon, TalkeetnaLanding.com. Check out the cabins. John Quick and the Kenai for supporting independent journalism, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks.